across the land.
Welcome to Reaching Out Radio, where God comes first, striving to deliver first-class entertainment spanning all forms of media, talking about important social and world issues, and advocating positive change in a lost and dying world. And now, here's your host, Ambassador Elisa Lane.
We're here today talking about atheists and getting their take on why they do not believe in the Creator. Now, the literal definition of an atheist is a person who does not believe in the existence of God or any gods or any spiritual force of any kind. 56% Americans says it's not necessarily, 56% Americans says it's not necessary to believe in God. Well, most Christians feel that someone has to be in control if God isn't, and he is. Only God can raise someone from the dead like he raised his son Jesus. No man can bring his own body back to life and prove there is a God who can. And prove there is a God who can. There has to be a master designer who created the human body, creation. Look at the earth, how it is designed, trees, animals, the sun, the moon, the rivers, seas, vast oceans. The created world is too complex to have been created by none other than the master craftsman. It's one thing to create, but another story of how our created world functions. Creation reflects the intimate involvement of God. Just because one doesn't believe in God doesn't change the fact that he exists. However, we have invited an atheist who does not agree. He thinks it makes no sense to put God or religion. He said it just doesn't make any sense about God or religion. He says it just doesn't stand up against logical thinking. His name is Andy Murphy. Andy was born in England and lived there until 2001, then moved to California and was educated at Cardiff University in Wales for his BA and at Chapman Law School for his JD. He's played the guitar since he was 15, along with other instruments. He writes and records his own songs. Last year, Andy published a novel about a few ordinary Germans who actively resisted the Nazis in World War II, based on real German resistant groups of, Wow, that's a very interesting book. I want to get a hold of that one. Now, it was about a few ordinary Germans who actively resisted the Nazi in World War II, based on German resistant groups. So Andy is also a runner and have ran in several 5K races. How exciting. His best place finish, he was in 6th place, and one day he hopes to do better. Listening to his story, it really touched my heart because I always wanted to show us open to everybody. We're not here to judge. We're not here to condemn him, try to change his mind. He's taken his time to do this for us, and we're so honored. And so, listener and viewers, some of you out there may be atheists, and so we just want to let you know we're open to everyone. We invite everyone to listen to this show. And again, we're not here to criticize, condemn, judge. So, Andy, we thank you for honoring your commitment to be a guest on Reaching Out Radio, where God Comes First always broadcast. And joining me is Anna Kaite and our rope panel host, Mike Blevins. Now, Anna, she was an atheist. She was a pro poker player and a contestant on Survivor reality show before giving her life over to God. So, guys, let's welcome Andy, and let's dive into this topic. Now, I want to say before we get started, you know, I've gotten some interesting questions and comments from atheists where it was said that if there was a God, why is there so much trouble in the world? Innocent babies being murdered and killed, and poverty. How can a God who exists allow all of these things to go on in this world? Murder, rape, molestation, pedophiles, all of this craziness that goes on in our world, and the world doesn't want to change. They don't want to change. So how could there be a God? Who wants to answer that before
I do.
let Andy?
That's a great question. I do, if that's okay. It's such a great question, and that was the same question I had. And it was the same question when I became a born-again Christian. I was still dating an atheist, and that was the first question he asked me. I mean, it is a profound question, and it's a great question, and the answer to it is the fact that there is a God, but there is very much also a devil. And on top of that, there's very much a third entity here, which are human beings, our free will. Even though God has a perfect plan for your life, he sees the end from the beginning, you still have free will. Like I shared the analogy last time I was here last week. It's like a football game, right? If you know who wins in the end, you know how many touchdowns in this football game your friend has told you, but you didn't watch the game. You go home and you turn on the replay. You know how it ends. You know who wins. You know how many touchdowns. You know who fails. You know who wins. Right? Are you in control of the free will in the movie in the game? No, they have free will. So that's exactly what happens in this world. God has a perfect will, which is peace, harmony, love, and joy. The enemy has his own plan, right? Which is destruction, killing, death, murder, gossip, all of it, hatred, right? But then there's man in the middle who, it's like the analogy of like the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other, demon on the other, right? So man has free will. And so God has a perfect plan, but it's up to man. Man makes the decision. And so I was sharing in the first hour how I was completely stubborn. God didn't make sense to me. I was a biologist. I was going to go to medical school. I was so stubborn, so prideful, and God couldn't touch me. He wanted me to do different things in my life, be more loving, be more kind, be more open, but the more someone said God, the more I said, it pushed me farther away from him. And it took a time for him to take me through a process, like in a crucible moment, where I was broken. My pride was broken. My arrogance was broken. And I started becoming curious. I started thinking, wait a second, if I'm an atheist, right, which I am, and I'm searching for truth, what if I'm wrong? How about I open myself up? Maybe I'm wrong. Let me actually really search for truth. Because if God is real and he made this universe and I'm wrong, and that's the biggest gamble you can gamble is your eternal existence, is your soul. And the rational, logical mind, as I was sharing in the first hour, your rational mind doesn't understand. It says in the Bible, your rational mind is an enemy of God. Because the things of the spirit, you can't understand it with your rational mind. It makes no sense. So the moment I opened myself up and said, God, are you real? Show me. And he did. And I had a physical, tangible experience with him. And he changed my life. And he showed me all these things. All the lies became so clear. And I realized, wow, I have free will and I want to choose God. I'm done choosing my way. I'm done choosing brokenness. I'm done choosing, everything that's against God. And I chose God. And the moment I surrendered to him was when he changed my life. And the last thing I want to say is I thought it was going to be boring being a Christian. I thought being righteous is you get rid of fun. You get rid of freedom. No. It's actually quite the opposite. When you're born again and you are free, you're not a slave. You are free from the slavery. Jesus, so Moses, when he first delivered God's people, he delivered them physically. They were slaves in Egypt. When Jesus came, he was a type of Moses who was to come, the prophesied Moses who was to come, the Messiah. Jesus came to free us spiritually. He freed us from the sin that we don't realize is even around us or in us or keeping us captive. So the moment you're born again, you're free and you're delivered and the veil comes off and everything makes sense. You realize how illogical atheism is and how illogical even evolution and the Big Bang Theory is, which I talked about in the first hour, Andy. So that would be my response.
Okay, let me jump in here now. Andy.
Okay.
Tell us, why don't you share with us and our listeners and our viewers, why don't you believe in God?
Well, first of all, I just want to address the problem of evil that we were just talking about, and the answer that it's based on, because humans have free will. But there's other things in the world which don't involve human free will. Like there's a species of wasp that lays its eggs in the eye of a beetle, and the egg hatches and eats through that beetle alive, and then comes out, then burrows through the beetle's belly to pupate. Now, something like that doesn't seem to be something that would be created by a loving God to me. That would seem to be more, if it was created by anyone, it would be a devil. And there's no human free will that explains that. So that's something that doesn't really gel to me with the explanation that free will is behind the problem of evil.
Well, I don't mean to cut you off, and I want you to finish, but I want to say that the Bible actually explains your question.
Let him finish. Go ahead, Andy.
Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
But for me, the reason why I don't believe is because I understand the difference between knowledge and belief. Now, knowledge, at least the way I'm talking about it, refers to things that we have evidence of. Like I have evidence of the room that I'm in. I can see the room. I can feel the room. I have evidence of the oxygen in the air because I'm breathing. I have evidence of electricity because the light's on, which uses electricity. And things that we can have direct or indirect evidence of, we can be pretty sure they exist. Anything else, we have to choose whether we to believe it or not. But things that we don't have evidence of, then we just don't know about that. So it just doesn't seem to make any sense to believe, to believe so strongly in something that there's no evidence for.
Have you ever challenged God and said, "If you real, show me"? Like, have you ever?
I have done that, and nothing's happened.
Okay, Mike, you want to jump in?
Wait, I just want to say really quickly, but love, right? You don't be love. It's not a tangible thing, but do you feel love? You can feel it, right? It's not something that you can hold in your hand.
Yes, feelings. Yes, we know feelings are real because we feel them. We feel them internally, and but you
can feel God also because He's also real.
But this, and you may feel God is there, but that doesn't necessarily mean that is true because you've got no other evidence of it. No one's ever seen God. No one's ever heard from God. Even the people that wrote the Bible, there's no evidence they actually saw God or heard from God. They were just people like us, same as us. They had no better answer than we do.
Andy, if I can just jump in. You're one of the questions we have to answer in Christianity about God is, you're right, suffering and evil, because there seems to be so much of it. But like Anna was saying, God gave us a free will, and a lot of people choose to do evil and misuse that free will. But I think another question that you need to look at too, or think about, is since we see so much bad and evil, how can we see good? That cuts against the grain. That shows there is a God, because in all this we see good and we see beauty. And so I think that's an argument for God, just the fact that we do see good and beauty and we see kindness and love, like Anna was saying, all these things. Have you ever thought about that aspect?
Well, I don't think good and beauty depend on God at all. I mean, I don't believe in God, but I'm a good person. I treat people with respect, and I don't do evil things or anything. And just like most people do,
have you ever lied or?
People are generally good to each other because we are a social species, and reason has told us that we have to treat each other right. Otherwise, everything breaks down. Society breaks down.
Well, and I don't think that good depends on God, but I think it does show, because there's a bent. We were talking about on the broadcast before this one, how everything has the second law of thermodynamics. Everything seems to go in the wrong direction. And so when you see man going in the right direction, you see man do good things, I think that's an argument for God. Not that it depends on God, but it shows that we are made in the image of God, because there's an aspect of goodness in us. I don't think we'd be there if there was a creator and it created us in His own image.
And actually, I just want to jump in and say, Andy. I'm going to say this really quickly. That there's two books I mentioned in the first hour, which I really suggest you read, because it does seem like you're open-minded, and your questions are awesome. And I have the same exact questions. I think you'd really love this guy. His name is he's an apologist. Christian apologist. His name is Frank Turek, and he talks specifically to atheists and agnostics. He has great books. He's on YouTube also. His name is Frank Turek, Turek, and he has a book called Stealing from God. So literally all of the point that we use in the atheist world, literally we're actually stealing from God, the good and the evil and all this stuff. The good and evil doesn't exist in the atheist world, right? We're just who we are, and there's no such thing as good and evil. When you use those terms, good and evil, you are actually talking about the fact that there is a God and there is a morality, that something's good and something's evil. How do you know that killing your baby is, or killing a 3-year-old is evil? Well, because that's the definition that God has given. Literally, it's dependent on God. It's stealing from God. So that book, I think you'd really love it, and it's totally rational, and it's really good.
Well, morality is definitely a thing, and morality actually comes from reason, not from God. And this is why, I did my BA is in philosophy. And at the school I went to, my undergraduate school, there was a divinity school there. And the divinity students took moral philosophy with us because, morality does come from reason. It's not from religion. It is from reason.
It comes from God. You can't have morality.
I have a concern. I have a concern here. Earlier, he stated that he did call out to God and said, "If you're real, show me you're real." He did ask God, show me if you're real. You know, he invited God to show him, and God didn't. He said nothing, absolutely nothing happened, Andy?
No, nothing happened. Nothing unusual or anything like that. So.
Okay, can I ask you, when did you ask, just out of curiosity? Was it last week?
I asked that a long time ago in my teens when I was questioning all the things that I'd been taught and just didn't make any sense to me, and so I just questioned and I didn't receive an answer.
Okay, well, I just want to say a quick prayer, Lord. I just pray, Lord. You know, I just pray, Lord, that you show him you're real. God, you are the God of the universe, Lord. It doesn't make sense to us why you're real, how you're real, why we even have to accept Jesus and sin. We don't see sin. Why is it so important, Lord? So, Father, I ask that you just give him a dream. Have an encounter with him, Lord. I love the fact that he's on here vulnerable and just open with us and open on everyone on the radio listening, Lord God. Father, I thank you that you will reveal it to him and he will know that you are real. And sometimes he lets us kind of just maneuver the world and just see and wonder. And he loves your wonder and your curiosity, and he will reveal himself to you. If you diligently ask him, he will. And not to say that you didn't diligently ask him, but sometimes he waits a little bit to see, do we really, really want to know, or do we already have our mind made up? Because for me, he answered me after 2 weeks, but I was waiting and wanting an answer. I was longing for an answer, and he did. Yeah.
How long did it take him to answer you, Anna?
It took him 2 weeks. I asked with all my heart. I thought it was going to happen instantly, and it didn't. And so I just think that really it says in the Bible, those who seek him, it says in the Bible, those who diligently seek him, he will reveal himself. So it's not
maybe because maybe because Andy was younger at the time, and maybe God felt like as though if he did explain it to him, then he wouldn't understand because he was young. You were under 18?
I was under 18, but I was about 15 or so. So I was able to think and realize things.
Tell us a little bit about your background. Did your mother and father believe in him, or all of your family was atheist?
No, my parents. I don't know what they really believe, but they went to church and stuff. It was a Catholic family, so they were going to mass and everything. But I don't know how much of it they actually believed.
I understand. Did they ever introduce you to the Bible?
Not really, but I have read the Bible
because. What do you think after reading the Bible?
I thought the Bible just doesn't make any sense. Parts of the Bible contradict each other, and it's obviously not written to be taken literally, and it's not. It doesn't seem like it's inspired by God or anything like that to me. It's just something that stories that people made up to explain certain things.
Well, I had an experience like Anna. I had to I don't want to say challenge, but I asked God when I was a little girl. I was like about 6 years old, and I wanted to know how I was created. The veins in the lines in my hands. I knew a mother and father couldn't do that. So I went to my mom at about maybe 5 or 6 years old, and I said, Mom, how did I get here? Because I just had this deep inner feeling that there's no way a mother could give you make your eyes, make your nose, make your mouth, and all of my whole body structure. And I said, Mom, how did I get these lines in my hand and my arms and nose? I know you couldn't do that. Mommies and daddies can't make that. And she said, no, you come from God. And when I remember first hearing the word God, it was such a strong name. It just like my ears start buzzing because I never heard a name like that. I've heard of Terry and Bob and Sherry and Lisa. I heard of common names, but when I heard the word God, it was like a ringing in my ear. And I said, I want to meet this God. I want to talk to him, and because I want to know how he created me. So my mother said, where does he live? She said, he lives in Zion in heaven. And I said, well, I'd like to talk to him. And she says, well, go and pray. And I said, how do I get him to come to me? And she says, well, you have to go into your room, Lisa, and you have to cry out to him, and you have to call his name, and he'll come. So I went in my room, I closed the door, and I sat on my bed, and I called him about 3 times. Can you come? My name is Lisa. I'm 5 years old, and I'd like to get to know you. Where are you? He didn't come. I didn't feel anything. Second time, I said, God, my name is Lisa. Elisa, and I want to meet you. I want to talk to you about my nose and my eyes and my hair on my head. How did you do that? How did you do those things? I want to know. I'm so curious. I had such curiosity at such a young age. He didn't come. I got angry. I said, Mom, this guy won't come. What's his problem? Why won't he come to me? I demand that. I wanted him to come. And my mother said, keep crying out. He'll talk to you. So I said, are you scared of little girls or something? I'm just a little kid. How come why are you so afraid to come to me? Then I'm not going to believe in you then, because if you can't come to a little girl and answer these questions, then you must not be real. All of a sudden, Andy, God's honest truth, all of a sudden there was a light that came in my room, and my whole room, it lit up. I mean, it was like the sun had just landed in my room, just set in my bedroom. Everything was white, everything, including me, and I'm Ethiopian, and my bloodline got a lot of stuff in my bloodline, Ethiopian, Chinese, and Indian, and I was even white, like a white that you can't even describe. And I almost was blinded because the light was so bright. And without him saying a word, his presence convinced me, and I ran out the room because I almost was blinded. I couldn't see it. I go, Mom, God came in my room. God came in. She says, now you know he's real. So that was my experience because I wanted to know. And so I think that's something, that's just an idea. Maybe you should say, because that's what I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask him to, like me, you got to show me. I need to see if you're real or not. And if you cry out like that, he wants to introduce himself to you. And there's no way that if your mind was totally made up that there wasn't a God, you wouldn't be on this show. So I believe there's some amount of curiosity buried deep, deep, deep within. Do you guys agree, Anna and Mike?
I do, yeah. And listen, when you're and as an atheist, when someone mentions the Bible, the first thing I would think is, I don't want to read that dogma. It's just straight dogma. It's just rules of how to live. But when you are open and you say, "Hey, God, you will show me," and He does, because He is, He'll show it to a little girl. And I don't know why the Lord didn't, jump in and show you. I don't know if there was something in your heart. I don't know. Only God knows the heart. And maybe there was a reason. Maybe He didn't want you to walk through some time with, just experiencing life and being, as clearly you're brilliant, you're very smart, you're very logical, you're very rational. But I do believe if you cry out again, that the Lord will answer and show you. Because the moment where I did that, just like Elisa when she was 5, having that childlike faith, it says in the Bible, He wants to have childlike faith. He loves curiosity because He hates pride more than anything. Pride got the devil kicked out of heaven. He doesn't like pride, doesn't like arrogance. And for me, I was very prideful. I was very arrogant. I was like, there's no way God's real. If I wasn't open-minded like I was when I was 2016, saying, okay, maybe you're real, can you show me? I wouldn't have been ready for that guy, because that guy that came up and said, hey, I have a message to you from God. You've been asking this question. I'm here to answer it. If I was stubborn like I was a year before, I would have never listened. I would have literally shoot him away. I'd be like, okay, but I gotta go, and I would have done it. But it might not. It might have anything to do with you. It might just be the Lord's will, just to show you when it's time, when you're ready. Because those who have ears to hear, when we're ready to hear Him, He will answer. And it changed my life. And I want to say this as well. When I was full of the Holy Spirit, and I read the Word, the Bible now, it's not dogma to me. It's freedom. It's literally freedom. The words are like gentle. It's like honey to my soul. It feeds me. It makes me, encourages me, love, and joy and love. I feel His presence. I mean, I see how He, it's just incredible dreams, visions, encounters with angels and encounters with demons. You start seeing things that are just like, will blow you away, and you'll realize, wow, the Bible is really real. Like, this is the true Word of God. It's not just dogma. And it really comes with an experience with Him. And it really takes openness. And not to say you weren't open before, but I feel like if you're open again now, it seems like you are, just ask Him again, and He will. He'll show it to you.
Okay, hold that thought. We're going to take a commercial break. We'll be right back after these messages. Stick around. Elisa with Reaching Out Radio, where God comes first. Our special guest is Anna Kaite, who was an atheist, and now she is a woman of God. Wrote panel host Mike Blevins, and our special guest, Andy Murphy, who is an atheist, but a very, very kind man who we're honored that he took the time to do this interview. So, Andy, my next question is, do you believe in the devil?
Do I believe in what, sorry?
Do you believe in the devil?
The devil? No, I don't believe in the devil either.
So you don't believe in God or the devil?
No.
What do you...
And personally, I think if the devil was real, then that would imply that God is real anyway. So, but there's no evidence for the devil or for God.
So if you get hurt or anything happens, you get ill, how do you handle? Because I know, because the minute I catch a cold, I'm like, God, please heal me. I cry out to the Lord because that's all I've known ever since I was 5 years old. So when you need help, who do you depend on?
Well, if I get really sick, I go to the doctor, and the doctor heals me. If it's something minor, I just wait to get better. I don't blame being sick on any external force. You know, it's just random chance that happens.
What if you find out God was real, and he comes to you maybe tonight and visits you and say, Andy, and he proves to you that he's real? How would you feel then? If he just visits you tonight or tomorrow or one day soon, and he visits you and say, Andy, I understand you didn't believe in me before, but here I am now. I am real. And I understand how you feel because I'm a God of mercy. I'm a God of grace. I'm a God of forgiveness. You look into the world, you've probably seen a lot of churches that full of amusement, full of entertainment, hypocrites, these prosperity pastors. But don't mix that up with me. Don't mix that up with me. I'm real. Will you give him that opportunity if he was to come visit you, to give him a chance to show you that he's real?
Well, I think that's very unlikely to happen. If it did, I would have to see how I felt at that time. I mean, obviously, if God proved that he was real, he was like the big boss in charge of everything, I would have no choice but to submit to God. If that did happen, but I think it's very, very unlikely that will happen.
Well, you would have a choice. Trust me, you would have a choice. People see Jesus, and I'm going
to. Then that would change the rational choice. I mean, if there is a God, then who's in charge of everything, then the only rational choice is to be on the side of God.
Okay, so let's do this. This is where our faith come into play, guys, Mike and Anna. Okay, God, I'm going to say a prayer. Go to Andy. Maybe tonight, tomorrow, or whenever. We're challenging you to go to him and prove that he is real. Otherwise, we will look false. We will look fake. Everything we said, being on the radio for 8 years, over 8 years saying, this is Reaching Out Radio where God comes first always. That experience that I had at 5 years old, our God will not make us look bad. He will never bring shame to our name. So, God, we are challenging you this day to visit this man so that he can see that what we're saying is real and what I experienced in that bedroom was not an illusion. Will you do that for us, God? Because otherwise, this whole purpose of having him, this whole point of having him on a show, it's just senseless, pointless. So, God, I'm asking you, Anna's asking you, Mike is asking you, the listeners and viewers, our loyal listeners and viewers, even the atheists, go to him so we can get this straight and he can see who our God really is, and he can know that you do exist, and if you don't go to him, then he has every right to stay an atheist. Mike?
Yeah, hey, that's a great prayer, and I'll pray it too for you, Andy, but I have a question for you. You were talking about reason. I remember when I was in school studying Immanuel Kant, and he tried to bring faith and reason together. And he said the reason we have reason and morality is God has stamped his image upon us by which reason flows. And earlier Anna was talking about being a lawgiver. How would we know right and wrong in the law unless there's a lawgiver. So like I was saying earlier, goodness is argument for God because there is no God. How do we have reason and how do we know right from wrong in laws? Have you ever thought about the fact that if there is no God of good, how can there be good? Or how can there be reason?
We have reason. We have reason because we have brains that can think about things, and we can reason things. But there's that can all be explained through scientific explanations of evolution, the Big Bang to create the universe, like gravity to form the galaxies and the planets and everything, and life appearing on the planet and evolving into what became us. And because of our brains, we can think about things and we can reason things as well. And we can reason that okay, if I go around killing people or stealing things from people, other people can do that to me, and so that's not a good way to be. So it's best. So the most logical thing is not to do those things.
Well, I agree with you. We can go to science and math, and some things we could study, and through reason and numbers, we can come to conclusions in the objective realm, but not in the subjective realm. When you see good in a world of bad, you have to ask, where does that good come from? And if you see reasoning, where does reasoning come from? It doesn't come from math. And I think that, like Immanuel Kant said, there has to be a God who has implanted upon our soul his goodness and his image. And I just challenge you to think about that further.
So the sun, the moon, the ocean, the seas, the animals came from science or the Big Bang Theory? Is that what you think?
Well, the Big Bang Theory explains how the universe came to exist.
How did Big Bang Theory come in?
And then gravity.
Well, how did something come from nothing? The Earth is over 3 billion years old. There's been plenty of time for all this stuff to develop over time, and animals to evolve over time, and us to evolve over time.
So who created the Big Bang Theory? Like, how did they get here to do what they're doing?
Well, I'm not a physicist, so I don't fully understand this. But what I have heard is that in a perfect vacuum, particles of matter and antimatter spontaneously appear, and usually they appear in equal quantities, so they collide and they annihilate each other. One time there was more matter than antimatter that appeared, and that became the universe. That's what the Big Bang was. That's one explanation I've heard for it.
So when you die, where do you think you're going to go?
Before we go to eternity, the thing is in physics that's impossible, because in physics, so the first law of physics is matter cannot be created nor destroyed. So matter has to have already always been, and scientists have admitted that there was a beginning of the universe. So if there was a beginning, obviously there's also an end, something created it. It couldn't just happen. Like a painting doesn't just pop out of nowhere. Someone had to have made it. If there's a painting, there's a painter. If there's creation, there's a creator. If there's an animal, there's someone that created it too, creation. So I would challenge you on that. And I actually, Andy, before the end of the show, after the show's over, I would love to get your address. I would love to send you some books and get your email and send you my email as well and discuss this further, because it's a larger conversation that is far longer than an hour. But I love that you're open and having this conversation. It's so good.
So where do you think you're going to go when you die? What's going to happen when you die?
Just cease to exist.
You're just no more Andy Murphy. You're just gone.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, part of me deep inside suspects reincarnation might possibly be true, but that doesn't make any sense to me either. So I think it's probably just like being asleep. You no longer there, but it's a deeper sleep. You're just gone. So
no, definitely no heaven or hell. That's definitely out of the question.
Yeah, I don't think that there's no reason to believe those things are real either.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's no reason to believe, but whether you believe in truth or not, I mean, truth is still truth, and just whether we believe like that the world is round, it's round. Whether we want to dig into it or not, so the reality is there, and it's just about being open to it. And it kind of seems like you already made your decision that he's like not real, it's not going to happen. But I'm telling you, and I don't want to speak at you, and I don't want to disrespect you, but really, if you're really open and really curious, he will show it to you, and it will literally, rationally doesn't make any sense, but it will change your whole perspective on everything. It's a completely different paradigm, and because this world, the physical world, was created from the spiritual world. There is a beginning and an end date for this world. It rationally doesn't make sense how physically matter came from nothing. So I really suggest listening to and reading some fantastic books. I want to read you. I would love to send you that will challenge you in the atheist perspective of rationally, not challenge. It goes through chapter by chapter of everything, reasoning through everything, and it'll start opening it up. And then God, I think, will be able to really be like, okay, now you understand how it's physically possible and why it makes sense. now let me touch your life. I just really feel that.
You believe that when you die, that's just it, but do you believe in reincarnation?
Well, there's a part of me that does. But I don't really believe it because it doesn't make any sense to me. But there's a part of me that does seem to be convinced that I've lived before.
So Anna,
and also, if reincarnation was real, then someone would be there to decide: are you going to reincarnate into an ant, or are you going to reincarnate into a human? Right. So there would be some kind of judge to make that decision. Not necessarily. Right.
Not necessarily. I mean, if reincarnation is real, then my feelings are it's just a part of nature. It's a natural thing. Who knows? I mean, that's another thing that we don't know. I mean, that's another thing you have to believe or not believe because there's no evidence for it. And I don't really believe it, but I just say there's a part deep down in me that does think I've lived before.
Okay, so my question would be this. So it seems very much so that you have your mind made up. Is there any part of you that thinks that you might be wrong, that there may be a God? Or are you 100% like, oh, there's no way God is real and there's no way he can even show it to us? What do you mean? Are you open to him about you possibly being wrong and him being real?
Well, my view is that we just don't know the truth about this stuff. It's things that people have claimed. A lot of people claim God is real. A lot of people claim that other gods are real, and so it just doesn't seem logical to me to pick one of those beliefs, especially when there's no evidence for it. Just to believe in one thing or reject everything else, and that. So to me it seems like religious belief is something that humans should have outgrown by now. We should be focusing on human needs and what we really need instead of worrying about gods that we have no evidence of.
So the Big Bang teach you how to love because God is love. How do you love a person? How do you connect with people in love? Where does this love come from?
It comes from our brains, from our hormones, from our emotions.
Mm-hmm. Well, I actually want to piggyback off what you're saying. So you said that no one knows if God is real, and actually that's not true. I know God is real. Elisa knows God is real. Michael knows God is real. You don't know God is real. And there's many people that know God is real. So it's actually not an accurate statement. I've encountered Jesus. I've seen him in dreams. I've seen him in visions. I've had real encounters. I know God is real. Before I knew God wasn't real, I wasn't open-minded. I came to a point where I was open-minded. I opened the door for him, and he walked in like a gentleman and changed my life. It blew me away. Like, Anthony, it really blew me away because I was so convinced he wasn't real. And so the only thing I challenge you is, are you open-minded to God? Because that really is the first question. And once that becomes your first question and you can answer it and say, well, there's a chance I might be wrong, because when you change your language, and I'm just saying just in general for anyone listening, I'm not speaking to anyone particularly, like once you change your language from he's not real, there's no way, it makes no sense, he just can't be real, no one's seen him, no one will ever know if he's real, it doesn't matter anyway. Once that is broken and when I say you, I mean people are open-minded to, what if I'm wrong? What if God is real? And having an open heart, that's what it takes. The Bible talks about open ears, open heart. Once we break that wisdom of man, and because in the Bible it says it doesn't make sense. God doesn't make sense to us. Our rational minds cannot comprehend him. So it takes a moment of curiosity and openness for him to walk in, because he won't deal with the pride. Again, Satan got kicked out of heaven. Doesn't mean that he doesn't want you. He wants to show you he's real, but he's waiting for you to say, you know what? There is a possibility I might be wrong, and he might be real.
And also, Andy, what about what we experienced, that experience that I had with him that encounter I had with him when I was 5 years old in my bedroom? Anna hearing from him in vision and dreams, Mike experience. What do you think? Where do you think all that come from?
I can't explain that. I don't know what really happened. I wasn't there, so I didn't see any of that. But things that appear in dreams, that's not real anyway. That's just things that stuff that our brain makes up at night. So you say you know God's real, but you don't. That's not knowledge. You don't have knowledge of God. There's no direct evidence of God or indirect evidence of God. It's belief. It's creation. Belief. That's what you have.
Creation is a direct evidence of God. Once you throw out all the dogma that was taught
it's
in
not
school,
because the world and us we can be explained by natural means.
Well, you can't comprehend God by knowledge. You comprehend God by experiencing Him. It's not a thing about knowing and knowledge and wisdom. It's an experience. It's an experience. And one of my concerns, one of the burdens that I had is our belief, what the Word of God says, is that they're not just black and white letters in a book. God said that in the beginning was God, okay, was the Word, and the Word was God. So this is an experience, and the Word also said, I have chosen my children before the foundation of the earth. He had predestined His children before the foundation of the earth. So He chose us before we chose Him, and perhaps He didn't choose you. And giving you an opportunity, because God, have you ever thought about He hardened your heart so to the point where, okay, I'm going to make this one an atheist, I'm going to make this one a believer. What if He did that and said, I'm going to make Andy an atheist, to use him to harden his heart, because so many listeners and viewers are going to be listening to this show. I'm going to use this one man to harden his heart to the point where they can hear this show and really think. And then after that, I'm going to unharden his heart, and he's going to experience me, because I'm going to visit him. Because the saddest thing is to leave someone like that to perish and say, hey, he wasn't predestined before the foundation of the earth. But here's what I find very interesting. You came on the show. And you coming on the show means a lot to us. It really does, because you didn't have to do this. You don't believe in God. You don't believe in God. And we're not trying to convince you that there is a God. This is something you have to experience for yourself. But what made you come on the show knowing that you was not, your mind is made up not to believe in God? Wouldn't you have told us, hey, listen, I'm not coming on the show. I don't want to talk to you Christians, you believers, because I don't believe in it. Because some atheists are kind of rude. You're really kind, and I humbly am grateful that you're a very kind person. If someone was to talk to you, they would never, the first impression people would get from you is, this is a real gentleman. This is a nice guy. You're very intelligent. You got a lot of history in your bio. I can't understand. I can't find a person as kind as you to be not believe in God. That love have to come from somewhere. So what made you come on the show? Agree?
Well, I was invited to come on the show, and I was told that you wanted to hear about like why people don't believe, and so I thought, okay, I'll go on then and I'll explain my point of view.
Wow, very interesting, Mike. We want to thank you.
Right here. I just have a quick question for you, Andy. We're talking about creation, and we know that the world, and I think Anna's right, that does show there's a God, and the world is created in space and time. And then people say, well, who created God? But God is outside of space and time. God doesn't need a creator because He's outside of this world and this world system. Have you ever thought about that, how God is outside of this whole system that He created? So whereas God doesn't need a creator, the world does need a creator.
Right, just want to say, like a painting that is obviously a painter is outside the painting. He can create it outside of the painting. He's not in the painting. He's outside of it.
Well, I just don't accept that. I mean, the universe, well, forget about the Earth for a moment. Just look at the size of the universe. It's absolutely massive. The size of our galaxy is massive, and we're just one of billions of other galaxies. So there's a whole lot of different planets out there where probably other life is on. And, I bet if we ever make contact with them, they're not going to have the same concept of God that we have on Earth. They may not even have any concept of God. Because, the idea that humans are somehow these special creatures that were created by God to love God, when you look at it from that point of view, it just does not make any sense at all. Because in such a massive universe, why would we be so special?
Well, actually, in the Bible, it says that all creation was created to worship God. Humans, even crickets that make those noises at night, they're worshiping and praising God. You can actually listen to some scientists and some people who've recorded animals singing and animals just making noises, and it sounds like total, just random stuff. If you put it together with a lot of other animals, you can actually hear them worshiping and praising God. It actually says that all creation worships God. And so it's not that humans are special. I'll tell you why, because we're made in the image of God, but He created all creation, including the flowers flowers, including the grass, including everything. And your second point about, things in the universe, right? Scientists and astronauts have been looking for decades and decades and decades. They still have not found any life outside of Earth because this Earth was made special. This is where Earth and living beings were created to live on. The third thing is, I was going to say about, image, that, what was it? The other point was about, it just slipped my mind. But I actually wanted to talk about this really quickly. Hebrews 12:1, like right before you came on, I felt to say this verse to you. And I love that your bio is you're a runner. That's really cool. Because in the Bible, the analogy of life is the analogy of a race. It's the analogy of running a race. And Jesus talked about it all the time. In Hebrews 12:1 says, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses. Right now, Andy, you are surrounded by a cloud of witnesses. Me, Elisa, Michael, I was an atheist before, and I, was radically changed and radically came into an encounter with Jesus. And so you're surrounded by a cloud of witnesses. And I just feel the Lord, this is like just such a verse for you right now in this time of your life right now. So therefore, since we are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders your mind, your wisdom, all this wisdom of the world and all this rational. Let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. And let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. And I'm not saying that wisdom is not great. It is. It says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. It's the beginning of wisdom. And, well, what does fear of God mean? It means reverence. It means once you realize that God is real, because I do believe it's going to happen one day, that God is real, it shocks the soul where you're thinking, wait a second, if God is real, that means hell is real, that means the devil is real, that means heaven is real, that means, wait, let me get myself together. That's when a real true wisdom comes in. It's not just this manly human wisdom. Things start coming so clear. And, that was the third thing I wanted to say. So God created the earth, and it says in the Bible that the earth is God's footstool. So you had a good point. The universe is massive, and it is expanding and expanding and expanding. This is true. There's nothing that scientists really say that is against God besides evolution, which makes no sense anyway. It all proves the Lord. So, yes, the universe is expanding, and it's so massive, and God is even bigger than that. It says in the Bible that, Earth and, the universe and the cosmos around it, it's a footstool for God. God is massive. He's outside of the universe. He's outside of it. He sees it. He created it. Just like, for example, a painting. A painter is outside of it. It sees all its intricacies. It had all the brushstrokes of his hand in it. His brushstrokes from heaven are all over this world. You see the beauty of a sunset, of water, of land, rocks, mountains. Did a mountain evolve from a little rock? No, it's impossible. There's no way that it could have happened with the Big Bang. It's something that I said in the first hour, where in physics, you never have order coming out of chaos. It's always, physics naturally flows from order to chaos, not the other way around. A Big Bang would lead into more disorder, not order and beauty and perfection and life. It would actually be the opposite. It would be even more disorder. It doesn't make any sense, and scientists can't answer that because it defies logic and also physics.
And most atheists say, well, who created God? God is not in the same category as created things. And I mentioned that earlier. God is not created. God is the uncaused cause. He is eternal. He simply exists. It is God who brought matter, time, and space into existence. And I'll say it again. You don't get to know God by knowledge, head knowledge, human understanding. It's a personal experience. But we're grateful that you came on the show, Andy. I want to get into your book. Tell us about your book.
My book, okay. Well, it's a story that's been inside me for a long time. Back in college, I read about a group in Germany called the Edelweiss Pirates. They were basically juvenile delinquents, but they hated the Nazis, and they did things like going camping out in the countryside and singing forbidden songs, and that's all in the book. And finally, in the pandemic, I finally got to write this book, so I did that. And there's also something about the communist resistance in Nazi Germany as well, because the communists were the ones who were most actively resisting the Nazis.
So you still got your running shoes on?
Well, not at the moment, but I'm going to go. I am going to go for a run after this.
Okay. Well, you said that you entered the 5K and you came in 6th place. What was that experience like?
Oh, that was great. I didn't realize when I crossed the finish line I came in sixth. It was only when I looked at the results I saw I was sixth, and I was first in my age group there as well. But there were only three in my age group, and one of them didn't start the race. So I was one of two.
And we as believers, we're actually in a race to finish our race with perseverance, endurance, and until our Father returns. What about your instruments? You play the guitar. What other instruments do you play?
I also play keyboards, harmonica, bass guitar, and a bit of drums as well.
Wow. So are you married? You have children?
I was married. I'm not married anymore, and I don't have any children.
You don't have any children. Well, we would like to get a copy of that book. When would it be released? When shall we expect the book? When can we?
The book has been released. It's been available on Amazon since July.
Oh! Well, congratulations! It seems like a very interesting story. So we're gonna give our last comments, starting with Mike. Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. Andy, thank you for coming on the show. So nice to meet you. And I will definitely look forward for your book. Take a look at it and just keep an open mind to God and see where you can see Him.
Andy, I want to thank you so much. Humbly thank you for having the guts to come on this show with a bunch of...
walk into the lion's den, so to speak, huh?
Yeah, I mean, because we're on fire for the Lord. We love Yahweh. We just love the Heavenly Father, our Creator. So for you to come on the show means a lot to us.
Absolutely.
You could have said no, but you came into the lion's den, but this lion's den, no one got hurt. We didn't devour you.
Yeah, no.
We love you.
We love you, Andy.
Anna, you want to close? Because you got like 10 seconds.
Yeah, Andy, I want to thank you for coming on. You're awesome. Thank you for being just so sweet and open. And I would love to send you some books and give you my email. We can chat further, and I would love to just hear what your thoughts are after reading some good books.
You've been listening to Reaching Out Radio, where God comes first always. If you'd like to hear this broadcast, go to our website at reachingoutproductions.com, reachingoutproductions.com. Remember, we're not here to criticize, judge, atheists. Anyone's welcome to listen to our show. And we just thank Andy, our guest, and we hope we kind of made an impact. And we'll see. We're gonna challenge our God to visit Andy. See you next week. Love you.
Reach out to all across the land.
Thanks for listening to Reaching Out Radio, where God comes first, striving to deliver first-class entertainment spanning all forms of media, talking about important social and world issues, and advocating positive change in a lost and dying world. For more information, visit our website at reachingoutproductions.com.